morning, and welcome to Morning Movie News, where we have, as far as the stories of the day go, not the viewer question, because actually the stories of the day are disqualified from the viewer question, as you'll see. We have all comic book movie news stories. Yes, it's that time of year again. Actually, it seems to be that time of year most of the year. But we had a little bit of a lull there, but it seems that the dry spell is over because as Star Wars enters the picture, as we've been seeing, when Star Wars finally enters the picture, the wait to get out of its way is over, and now all the other movies can advertise. So that's what we're going to be talking about a lot today. But actually, first we're going to be talking about Marvel movies. The third story, as you can see, is Marvel TV. But the first story is that Marvel itself is even starting to discuss its other properties. Finally, they also were on deep freeze pretty much in terms of talking about their upcoming movies, because them especially, because of course, as we've discussed, they're part of the same empire as the Star Wars movies, Disney. So they were a good division of the company and played along. But this box set is coming out for Phase 2, and it's packed with goodies, right? Why else would you buy it? So I really liked the Sokovia Accord one-pager that they released. I thought that was very clever. But they've been releasing a bunch of videos. Well, they have one large video, accompanying the set that talks about Phase 3. And they've been chopping it up into little parts and releasing it piecemeal every couple of hours on the internets so that it gets coverage, which is very smart on their part. However, I feel that it doesn't really warrant a lot of coverage because what they're discussing and what they're showing is like on the level of the Entertainment Weekly coverage that I kind of felt not so great about from Captain America Civil War last week. I feel that maybe this is for, again, non-comic book readers, but even then, I think most people are getting pretty savvy at this point, thanks to the movies and also people like me who are helping to fill in all those blanks and catch people up, much quicker than if they had to actually go through all the source material, etc. So, they have one clip of Chadwick Boseman saying he's a monarch, not a prince, and I think that I'm excited about Chadwick Boseman's portrayal of Black Panther, but he kind of said the same thing in Entertainment Weekly. So him just saying that in person isn't a huge headline in my opinion. But there was one headline. Also, by the way, everyone was like, well, what about this Doctor Strange? I got a lot of tweets about, oh, well, what about this Doctor Strange concept art? And for the most part, that's not concept art for the movie. That's just artwork for Doctor Strange over the years in the comics. I think you maybe had one photo at the end that was kind of like what they were going for, because it looked a little bit like Benedict Cumberbatch. But overall, they mostly just talked about how awesome Benedict Cumberbatch is, which I thought was funny because he was like the last person they chose, right? They were like, he's so great and talented. We're so lucky that he wants to play this character. I mean, he's almost as good as Joaquin Phoenix, or he's almost as good as Ewan McGregor, or Ethan Hawke, or all the other people we talked to, until we finally said, okay, Benedict, you can do it. So we'll see. We'll see how Doctor Strange turns out. I think Benedict Cumberbatch is a fantastic actor, a wonderful human being who I've had the chance to interview, and he actually more than once, and he's been an absolute talk about a prince every time. But for some reason, the general mainstream public just does not get Benedict Cumberbatch. Will they get him when he's Doctor Strange? We'll see. Marvel certainly helped a lot of careers that otherwise have been unable to take off. I'm looking at you, Chris Hemsworth, and Chris Evans, actually. Both Chris's. I was going to say, because they're not, well, Chris Hemsworth's having a hard time, and Chris Evans is definitely very popular as Captain America, but, they definitely have not been able to prove themselves outside of the franchise. Although Robert Downey Jr. had a little bit of trouble as well. But anyway, my favorite thing to come out of all this coverage was the revelation that Wanda is going to be such a big part of Captain America Civil War, and then also that she's going to, so much so that you're not only going to see heightened powers from her, which I'm super excited about, although I guess that's a no-brainer because she could now fly. Like when we last saw Wanda, she was she was just discovering her powers, but now she can fly through the air and do all kinds of amazing stuff. So you're like, wow, you really have been practicing. Who is she even training with? I still feel that she should be training with Doctor Strange. Like, who told her what she could do? I'd be amazed, if, Tony Stark's like, hey, luckily I have this magic deciphering machine. I'm just not quite sure how Wanda wouldn't learn what she could do. maybe she had some happy accidents. Well, I'd love that to be like a Marvel short. Like Wanda discovers her powers by accident in funny, awkward moments in the Avengers break room, etc. So also they said that she's going to have a character arc, and that's very exciting. I think Elizabeth Olsen's very good in the role. I never really even liked Scarlet Witch, but I love Elizabeth Olsen's interpretation of the character. It's a little bit like Black Widow. Never been a Black Widow fan, but I really like what Scarlett Johansson has done. Although it'll be interesting to see if Marvel can handle two female characters at the same time, right? Because so far Scarlett Johansson has enjoyed the bulk of the attention and really being the only female character. And that's something that I think society and women have to get over. That there's always one woman, who's it going to be? You all have to fight each other for that position. It can be like, just like there are a whole bunch of guys, there should be able to be a bunch of women. And everyone can pick their favorites, and your favorite can change, because we all like a lot of the male members of the Avengers, so we should be able to have a similar situation with the female members. So let's see if Anthony and Joe Russo, the Russo brothers, can have two strong female characters, considering what a nice job they did with Black Widow in Winter Soldier. All right, so let's move on to the second story of the day, which is actually about Star Wars to some degree, and that's that news is starting to come out about the trailers that are attached to the movie. It's a little bit like Super Bowl coverage, when we're always so curious to see what movies get a spot. Now the way that trailers work, for those of you who aren't familiar with this, there's always trailers that are, playing in front of a movie, kind of like Russian, not Russian roulette. If your movie isn't shown, it's dead. But, just like, lottery. Like, your trailers are in circulation and they'll play in front of the movie sometimes, and sometimes they won't. But there are some trailers that are able to secure an attached spot to the movie. And what that is that the theater doesn't decide what trailer to play. This is when they pop in the Star Wars DVD or Blu-ray. Sorry, that's the way mostly you're watching movies these days. It's not projected from film. When they pop in that Blu-ray from the studio, it has a couple of trailers baked in that have to show with the movie, right? So that's what people ideally want. So the big headline yesterday was that Star Trek Beyond has snagged one of those baked-in spots. So you will definitely be seeing a Star Trek trailer in front of Star Wars The Force Awakens. Now, I thought this was hilarious because isn't that the franchise that J.J. Abrams almost killed with Star Trek Into Darkness? I think if I were Disney, I would not want to remind people of that franchise before they were about to watch Star Wars. So it's almost like someone will run in and go, hey, you remember that franchise that J.J. Abrams almost ruined? It's still alive. He didn't kill it. So don't worry, no matter how this goes down, the movie you're about to watch, the overall franchise will be okay. But I am very curious to see what a Justin Lin Star Trek movie looks like, because he's, of course, the guy who pretty much made the Fast and Furious movies what they are today and handed it over to James Wan for 7. But he directed a couple of Fast and Furious movies, starting with 3, so 3 through 6, and he did a great job, obviously. And so I'm very curious to see how he handles this franchise, because he pretty much moved from like the movies where he was discovered. I think it was Better Luck Tomorrow was his movie. And then he's just been making Fast and Furious movies, basically. So I'm very curious to see how he does in a different sandbox. Now, the other trailers that are speculated to be playing with Star Wars are Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, but we've already seen it. Huntsman: Winter's War, already seen it. And these other trailers are coming, and they're probably going to be released next week, early next week, because Star Wars starts playing in theaters December 16th. That's when it starts getting released. Let's see here. And the premiere is December 14th. So starting Monday morning, beware spoilers on the internet. X-Men Apocalypse, that's supposed to play, so we should be getting a trailer for that any day now. And Independence Day Resurgence, which is basically Independence Day 2. So that's supposed to also have a trailer. And then, of course, Disney will want to attach its own trailers. So Civil War, you will almost definitely see Captain America Civil War in front of Star Wars. But then also, since Star Wars is a family movie, they could go with The Jungle Book and or Finding Dory. If I had to guess, I would think they're going to put The Jungle Book there, because The Jungle Book is much darker. They're trying to appeal to, get a fairy tale, a live-action fairy tale that appeals to the male demographic. And of course, Star Wars is very heavily male in its audience. There are female fans, but I think it skews a little male, or at least that's what it does now. Kathleen Kennedy's trying to change that. But I think that The Jungle Book is something they would definitely probably want to put in front of this. I don't think a new trailer, though. I think it's going to be the same trailer. All right, so that's the second story of the day, and I'm curious, would you want Star Trek in front of Star Wars if you were Disney or J.J. Abrams? And also, which of those trailers are you the most excited to see in front of Star Wars? Wars. All right, so the third story of the day, so many of you were so happy about this, is that Iron Fist does appear to be moving forward. Excellent. They're going to complete their 4 Defenders shows, so they can finally get to the Defenders show. And that means that, we still don't know if there's a Kevin Feige, Isaac Perlmutter battle going on behind the scenes, but we do know in this case that Isaac Perlmutter and Jeff Loeb won. We know that Marvel had some problems with what was going on with Iron Fist, and I think because of their serious crossover with the Doctor Strange character, but Isaac Perlmutter is rolling on ahead, and he's making an Iron Fist show. And so I think it's very curious to see how Disney will police this, and if everybody's going to get along. We'll see. I think the real test will be the Inhumans movie, but I will honestly say, some of you were right. The Iron Fist show is being made, and you guys were right to keep the faith. So, and thank you for those of you who sent me this story and were polite about it. All right, so let's talk about it. So Iron Fist what have they done? They've hired a showrunner. And what a showrunner is, that was Melissa Rosenberg's job. She also was the head writer and creator, basically, over on Jessica Jones. So what a showrunner does is they're kind of like the person who is the director of the show. They don't direct every episode. They don't write every episode because episodes are being worked on simultaneously. So sometimes a showrunner will also be a writer. It's rare that a showrunner is also a director, or at least starts out as a director. Often a showrunner is a writer, and then they'll become a director for some episodes. So anyway, a showrunner is someone who makes sure that basically they're like the captain of the ship, which is also a good way to describe a director, but there are much more moving parts when it comes to a TV show because, again, as I said, they're working on kind of like multiple mini movies, hour-long movies at the same time. So Iron Fist got Scott Buck, who is most well known for his work on Dexter. Now, he didn't start Dexter, but he finished Dexter. I believe he did the last 4 seasons. And he's worked on a couple of other TV shows, but he hasn't really made his mark himself. So he's an interesting creative choice because he hasn't really shown, I think, any spark of creativity yet. He's done a very good job being a good soldier for Showtime, for Dexter. And Dexter, I've never watched Dexter, but I believe it was popular throughout, and I don't think anybody ever felt that it really jumped the shark or anything, so he didn't ruin Dexter. So I think that's very important. But I'll be curious to see what he's got in terms of his creative juices. They said he made an interesting pitch. They liked the way he portrayed or felt about the character, so we'll see how it works. Danny Rand, of course, is going to now come to Hell's Kitchen, and of course, he has the Nanda, I forgot how to pronounce it, like Nanda Parabit or something. That's where Doctor Strange goes to get his mystical powers, and where Danny Rand gets the power of the Iron Fist. And so that actually reminded me of the strong Asian through-line story in Daredevil with those blind workers, remember, and all that. I thought that was very interesting, and you had that female villain and some really great bad guys, right? I loved that fight with that ninja. That was awesome. I thought that was fantastic. And so I would like that if maybe they were to bring that more in, because here's the trick. Danny Rand has all these mystical powers, just like Doctor Strange, and they go to this place in Asia to get them, but it's not an Asian hero, right? I mean, this you would think would be a great opportunity for some diversity, because New York, particularly in Hell's Kitchen, is a very diverse place. Not so much on the shows. Luke Cage, I think, is going to help a lot with that, his show. But still, it would be interesting to have an Iron Fist show where Danny Rand was Asian, and they could maybe still potentially go in that direction with the casting, and that would be very interesting. But I hope that even if they do go with a Caucasian Danny Rand as the character is, but they've race-bended so many other characters, why not? But as they go in that direction, and even if he is a Caucasian as he is in the comics, I hope that he's very involved in the Asian community, and they have a lot of other great Asian characters. I think that would be fantastic. So I'm curious, what do you think of Iron Fist moving forward? Are you still excited about Iron Fist? What do you think of bringing mystical properties to the Hell's Kitchen shows on Netflix, which have been pretty grounded? And what do you think about the Asian aspects of the mythology of Iron Fist and potentially the show? Would you like to see that too? And do you want a Caucasian Danny Rand, or do you want an Asian Danny Rand? It would be sweet justice for changing the ancient one to Tilda Swinton. Although, as they say, she could be playing him as an old Asian man. But why not just cast an old Asian man? We'll see. So those are the 3 stories of the day. Now, the viewer question comes from Francisco Lumbrera, who you might recall I mentioned yesterday is the BTT viewer that I had a Skype chat with on Sunday, who said, well, would it be possible to submit video questions for Morning Movie News? So it's only fitting that I thought that was a great idea, and so I think it's only fitting that he be the very first one. So, Francisco, take it away.
Hello. My name is Cisco from Florida, and my question is, what is some of your favorite movies that are directly from original ideas, not from a book, a novel, a magazine article, or a video game, or a comic book? I'd love to hear your thoughts on what original idea you turned into cinema that you enjoy.
Great question. You know, I have to say this one really stumped me. What I was like, how am I going to figure this out? So I thought of my three top favorite films of all time: The Dark Knight, Rear Window, and Saving Mr. Banks, and I was like, they're all kind of based on source material, right? I mean, like, definitely Rear Window, which is based on a short story, definitely The Dark Knight, and even Saving Mr. Banks to some degree is based on the book Mary Poppins. And I don't know if like a real life event is also kind of like source material, right? Like, is P.L. Travers source material? So I thought about it and I thought about it, and I was going through like the AFI Top 100 list, being like, what's an original movie on here that's not been another work inspired it? And I was having a really hard time, and so I thought about it, and finally I came up with one that I'm very pleased with for my answer, Francisco, and that is the Back to the Future trilogy, because that is just not only an original idea, but it's such an original idea. It's an incredibly inventive original idea. And I made sure that it wasn't based on anything, and it's based on a good old-fashioned idea where Bob Gale, who co-wrote the script with Robert Zemeckis, they said they came up with the idea for the script after Gale mused upon whether he would have befriended his father if they had attended school together. I think everyone kind of thinks that. I've wondered that sometimes. You know, it just kind of comes across your train of thought. You're like, oh, what if I was in high school with my parents? Would we be in the same social circles? I think that's a pretty interesting question, and I think Back to the Future answered it brilliantly. So I think I'm very pleased that that's my answer to your question, Francisco. I think that spawned a trilogy. It spawned its own mythology, and it's incredibly, because a lot of times when you have an original idea, it's just like for the indie films or award films, it's unusual for it to be a huge franchise and blockbuster. So I think Back to the Future is a fantastic example of an original idea which was able to compete with all these other movies that have, you know, fan bases that were already intact thanks to source material. So I challenge everybody else to take Francisco's challenge, and that's to come up with what you think is a really good movie that isn't based on anything else. And it's tough. So I'm very excited to hear everyone's answers. And make sure you double check it, right? Because I'm going to be checking them too, you know, at least for the next 24 hours when I go through the comments and seeing what everyone wrote. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. That's today's morning movie news. Be sure to write down below what you think of today's top 3 stories and your answer to that viewer question. Let me know anything you'd like to see covered tomorrow and any questions that you might have. They can be written, good old-fashioned written questions down below, or you can submit a video question as Francisco did, film it on YouTube, keep it under 30 seconds, and send me the link either in a tweet or in the put it in the comment section. All right, thanks for watching. Bye.